Yeah, please. I need those suits.
Umpisi can take you.
No, Umpisi is a different style. I want your style. I want to be. You're my role model.
No, me, I'm going the.
Honorable members.
A role model you Donald Trump.
Khulumi toilet manje.
Takile and Simang. Let's listen to the chair of committees.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. The speaker is having difficulty in terms of connectivity. She is in the meeting, but we are unable to hear her. So I will request that we start our meeting. I'm not sure whether the minister have managed to connect. I'll request that the team from ICT to check with him, to check him if he has managed to connect. May we remain standing for a moment of silence, prayer, and meditation. Thank you very much. This meeting is called in terms of Rule 18 in brackets 1, which reads as follows. The speaker may designate any sitting to a special sitting to consider any business that is not on the program of the legislature. And Rule 18 in brackets 3, the only business that may be conducted at this special sitting will be the business for which it has been designated. Before I request that the secretary to read the first order. I'm going to indicate to the House that we have received quite a number of apologies from different members. Member Hoffman, who's not feeling well, he won't be able to join us. Member Kresin Bosch, Agent Party Business. Member Mukwebo, Koma, Litwaba, Mazwi, Beden Hostong, Mufama, Khatebe, Mabala, Masemula. Masemula will be writing exams, and the others will be joining a party match. And of course, member the MEC Maile is attending the MINMEC meeting. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge and welcome the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture to this special meeting, and also appreciate his desire and indication that he wants to address the House on a very important matter. Let me also acknowledge the presence of our Premier, Mr. David Makura. Let me acknowledge the presence and thank members of the Executive Committee who have managed to make themselves available for this meeting. Also acknowledge the presiding officers, the Speaker, as well as the Deputy Chair of Chairs who's here. I'm told that the Deputy Speaker has indicated that she won't be able to join us as well. Let me acknowledge all honorable members who are present in this meeting. Thank you very much, members, for making yourself available for this short meeting. Let me acknowledge the senior officials led by the Secretary of the Legislature and Dates Kosana, and all other officials who are present or staff members who are present in this meeting. I'd also like to welcome and thank the community of Gauteng who have joined us through a number of social media platforms. You are welcome, and we appreciate your involvement in all our activities in Gauteng, and we'll also appreciate your response and inputs in some of our meetings. Thank you very much for coming. I will therefore request the Secretary to please read the first order.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy, Honorable Chairperson of Committees. The first order, and which is the only order of the day, is the address by the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture on the transformation of South Africa's heritage landscape.
Thank you very much, Ralph. I'll therefore like to call the Minister and request him to kindly deliver his address to the House. Minister Mthethwa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of Chairs, to the Honorable Speaker. I heard also that she's in the meeting. The Honorable Premier of Gauteng, Premier Makhura, MECs here present, members, honorable members, members of the media, if there are any, ladies and gentlemen, I extend my warmest greetings to all of you present in this gathering. The outbreak of COVID-19 has far-reaching implications in every area of human endeavor, from education to health, from food security to poverty alleviation, from the empowerment of women to social stability. We are urged, and we should also urge ourselves, to continue being vigilant against this pandemic, for we are not yet out of the woods. Let us observe all the health protocols of washing our hands, of physical distancing, and the wearing of masks always when we are in public spaces, because that will help to protect ourselves and protect those we come across. Let me turn to the issue at hand, the transformation of our heritage landscape, Chair, which is actually a matter we have not elevated to the level we should, because this is about the soul of a nation. It is about the identity of a people. Now, as we journey back to the advent of our democracy and its evolution in the last 26 years, we can reflect on how the heritage sector has transformed and evolved, and also reflect on challenges along the way with the aim of revisiting our approach and strategy. As many would say, hindsight is the best science, but life has to be lived going forward. In this presentation, I will flag the transformation of the heritage landscape with the aim of critically reflecting on strides made, as well as gaps that remain, and even more important, the steps being taken to complete the unfinished business of heritage transformation. In a complex environment of our democratic transition, and within the context of the contending forces, those fighting for transformation and those who seek to preserve their cultural dominance, it is easy to take a simplistic view of saying this project of transformation has been a total failure or has been a total success. And yet, reality is sobering in its complexing and nuances, as the picture that emerged is a mixed one of successes and shortcomings, of effort of change and resistance to change, thus producing a dynamic situation that we are confronted with today. More recent anti-racism protests and campaign themed Black Lives Matter across the world have reignited the debate about the symbols that dominate and define our public spaces, as well as place names and dominant hegemonic cultures that have defined our societies and reinforced dominant narratives that directly or indirectly sustain and oil the wheels of racism and colonial legacies. Back in the early 1990s, the ANC crafted a blueprint of its transformative project, a document titled Ready to Govern, which influenced many policies and programs, especially in the initial years of democratic transition. More important of this context is the fact that this document clearly pronounced on heritage transformation issues, as it observed that, and I quote, "The monopoly over symbols and names should give way to a diverse range representative of our whole population. Arts and culture are not the property of any one political party or group. Consequently, the ANC believes that state-funded cultural institutions should be non-sectarian." These ideas made their way and find expression in various sections of the interim constitution of 1993, proceeded to the constitution adopted in 1996, but also in the 1996 Arts and Culture White Paper. Later, there was a number of policies such as and laws such as the South African National Geographical Names Council Act of 1998 and the National Heritage Resources Act of 1999. A range of initiatives emerged from aforementioned policies, and these are, amongst others, the renaming of major national landmarks such as street names, international airports and cities. 2, the declaration of several previously marginalized heritage and liberation sites as national heritage sites, with some elevated to World Heritage sites or World Heritage level, like Robben Island. 3, some iconic heritage sites worth billions of rands have also been added to our heritage landscapes, These include, though not limited to, the Steve Biko Center in Ginsberg, Lily's Leaf in Rivonia, Nelson Mandela Museum in Umtata, Ngome Museum and Luthuli Museum in KwaZulu-Natal, the Freedom Park in Tshwane, et al. These add to other natural sites developed across the country, with some elevated to World Heritage status. With all of the above achievements, a South African formerly oppressed majority is still a cultural minority, as apartheid and colonial symbols and heritage still dominate our landscape, hence periodic protest agitating for more and rapid changes. And on this, honorable members, we need to do everything in our power to ensure that we minimize these protests, which, if not, may end up getting out of hand. Some of the name changes have been successfully challenged in courts due to procedural flaws. A reminder that any action in a revolution will be countered with reaction. Also important to note that as a constitutional democracy, we have had to embark on an extensive, slow and costly nationwide multi-stakeholder consultation, something that is painstakingly slow for my liking, but has to be followed to avoid any court clashes. On the issue of statues, we have engaged services of experts consulted stakeholders and conducted international studies on best practices to ensure sustainable solution of what we do with some of the colonial and apartheid symbols, whilst also balancing this with the need to have reminders of what our past had been like. In every revolution, military coups, or where popular insurrection has led to change of regimes, the sudden toppling of statues and symbols of the ousted regime or system is the hallmark of this transition. These honorable members underscore the point that these statues are not innocent architectural pieces. They are there to communicate a particular message, a message of hope, a message of authority in the main, a message of triumph, of martyrdom, and so on and so forth. This is, however, not the same case with constitutional democracy that was born out of a negotiated settlement between the contending parties. It is for this reason that we may have experienced a slow pace of change, and this compounded by the initial phase of our transition, which may not have prioritized arts, culture, and heritage with resources to achieve some of these goals on a grand scale. It will be a careful and complex balancing act with sustainable results that assist social cohesion and nation building that we must embark upon. In such instances, we have to answer the critical questions. Do we topple and destroy all statues deemed offensive by the fact that they represent colonialism and apartheid? Or do we reduce their prominence and still preserve them for lessons in posterity? Do we create a concentration camp of unwanted statues with a narrative, or do we leave it to those who still value them to preserve, thus running a risk of reigniting old right-wing nationalism by privatizing what is public property? Do we allow for juxtaposition of these statues, as it is the case in front of the Union Building, where Mandela is given prominence and centrality, whilst Herzog was moved to a lesser prominent space? What could be the more sustainable a nation building and stand that would stand the test of times, even if future regimes change? What are the best cases around the world? Rwanda, which experienced a gruesome genocide that saw around 1 million people exterminated and millions more displaced in a civil war that ensued, they managed to preserve remnants of that war, including skulls, to preserve the history, and yet they were moving towards nation building with those as reminders of lessons of history not to be repeated. As time passes, new debates are coming up and new interpretations of historical events are coming to the fore. So history itself is not static, as historian E.H. Carr observed on what is history. And the response that it is continuous process of interaction between the historian and his facts, an unending dialogue between the present and the past. Whereas Nietzsche says the facts of history are nothing, interpretation is everything. This applies not just in a scholarly examination of history and all what it means, but it is part of politics and people's perceptions of history, which often undergo subtle and visible changes all the time. The challenge of public policymakers like ourselves is to strike a balance in transforming the landscape by making sure that the future generations will never doubt our well-intentioned program and bona fides. This is easier pronounced than practiced in an argumentative and robust democracy as ours, which still have previous contenders holding to their positions. Nation building in a post-apartheid era is about making sure that transformation is effected, whilst at the same time, national unity is achieved. And these, at face value, look contradictory, but ultimately, our mission is to reconcile them without bending our principles and goals of emancipation. Consistent with this objective and best practice from around the world, Cabinet took a decision that all those monuments and symbols that are an anathema to the founding principles of our democracy and the foundational values in the letter and spirit will be relocated from prominent public spaces to what will be known as regional cultural nation building parks. These parks would be foregrounded by the theme, lest we forget. A few years ago, I set up a task team to look into the matter of heritage landscape in its holistic manner and make recommendations. And they did make those recommendations. And those recommendations are clustered in 4 areas. The first cluster is on public education, awareness, and mobilization, which is part of what is happening today, which recommended the importance of intensifying popularization campaigns about South Africa's key national symbols, but also take this to schools for greater civic awareness and national consciousness. The second cluster is that one of legislative efficacies. The cluster recommends that legislation which were perceived to be impeding the implementation of recommendations should be reviewed or amended. And I must add this, honorable members, that so far, the legislation has not proven to be impeding the process of transforming the heritage landscape. What has been impeding has been more on the consultation, which is one of the requirements, and that we cannot do without. The third cluster is the institutional capacity. Recent events that have demonstrated impatience with colonial and apartheid iconography showed that although there are systems in place to apply for name change and relocation of any statue or monument, the capacity in the relevant institutions was only ready to deal with limited requests within a limited period of time. The fourth cluster is the cluster of the fate, the future of heritage landscape. This cluster recommended that an audit of offensive statues, names, symbols, and monuments be conducted, and likewise advised the department to develop a framework which will provide guidance on the relocation of statues or monuments that are inimical to the Constitution and the founding values of the new democratic South Africa. Now, the question that honorable members will then ask is why we still have colonial and apartheid statues in our public spaces. Honorable members will appreciate the fact that the national and provincial governments are not custodians of most of these statues, though some belong to the two tiers of government. But most of them belong to and are under the custodianship of municipal authorities. For a statue, for instance, because this is asked all the time, for a statue to be considered for relocation, a public consultative process should be undertaken at a local government level. An application needs to be lodged with the Provincial Heritage Resources Authority, who will consider the application and take a decision on granting the permit after the required public consultation process. If the statue is on a property declared as National Heritage Site, the Provincial Heritage Authority will submit the application to the South African Heritage Resources Authority, who will consider the application and take a decision on granting the permit after the required public consultative process. The department is not in a position to engage in relocation of colonial and apartheid statues, as the minister is the executive authority for South African Heritage Resources Agency, who will take the decision on the application for relocation of a statue or symbol. So if we come in as the ministry, as a department, it definitely would be a conflict of interest. If an appeal arises against the decision of the South African Heritage Resources Agency on the application for the relocation of statue or symbol, the minister is the appeals authority who will appoint a tribunal to consider such an appeal and make a recommendation to the minister. So we can see then, honorable members, that the pace of transforming of our heritage landscape, more than anything, lies in the hands of ourselves as that particular local community. But also we're making an assertion that we need to have these cultural nation building parks, precisely because we have had interactions with the world. An example, for instance, is that in 1989-1990, when the Soviet Union government was outvoted, taken out of power, the statues of the then leaders like Lenin and others were destroyed, totally toppled, destroyed. But what followed thereafter was something the current authorities didn't think of, because all of a sudden there was an upsurge around the world for people who were coming to Russia who wanted to see these statues. And by the way, these statues had been put in a corner somewhere in a museum, which was referred to as Museum of Shame. So that Museum of Shame, with the pressure of people, tourists in Russia, forced the authorities to do a facelift of those statues and put them in the public spaces where people are now able to come and watch them. In South Africa, we are saying that we need to ensure that we do not create a situation where our public spaces and prominent spaces are dominated by those who represented all that which was an antithesis of our foundational principles. But at the same time, we are saying we are not going to throw those statues in the dustbin of history. They still belong to the state. We are having these cultural nation building parks so that those who would want to come and watch them would watch them, because we are aware that there are people who still have affinity to some of those people. We can therefore only make the point in the House that honorable members can raise the matter and engage particularly in a very direct way with the municipalities. And we become the champions of the heritage landscape we want to be proud of long after we've passed this world. Thank you for your attention, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your presentation. We will now move to getting comments from different political parties in response to what the minister have just presented. I will now call the honorable member from the ANC to please address the House. Honorable, let me just check.
Honorable Macheke, Chair of Chairs.
Yes, the chair of the Committee of Sports, Arts and Culture, Honorable William Macheke, will then address the House. Honorable Macheke, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair of Chairs, and good morning, Honorable Minister, Honorable Speaker, and Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier of Gauteng, Dr. David Makhura, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture in the Republic of South Africa, Ntate Nathi Mthethwa, Chief Whip of the Majority Party, Ntate Mzila Khumalo in absentia, members of the Executive Council from Gauteng, honorable members of the legislature, people of Gauteng and South Africa, we have joined via different media platforms. Dumelang. Minister Mthethwa, thank you for a comprehensive presentation on the transformation of South Africa's heritage landscape. Your presentation represents the aspirations of our people, and it is a clear confirmation of the ANC-led government at work that is focused on transforming heritage of our beautiful land, the land of our forefathers and mothers. Minister Nathi Mthethwa, your speech confirms that our heritage must truly represent the diversity of our society. The changes in our heritage space has helped protect, promote, and preserve South Africa's rich and diverse heritage. It has created a conducive environment for all people to embrace and celebrate what was inherited or passed to us by our forebearers. Madam Chair of Chairs, since the dawn of democracy in 1994, government has embarked upon transformation that has been characterized by building of new monuments, memorials, statues, museums, in honor of events and people who have shaped the history of our country. In Gauteng, Minister Mthethwa, we are proud that we managed to build several heritage sites that help with greater diversity and unity. These sites contribute to deepening of the values associated with social cohesion. In Gauteng, throughout our 5 corridors in terms of heritage monuments, we have, amongst others, the Women's Living Heritage Monument in Tshwane region that seeks to commemorate the 20,000 brave women who marched on the Union buildings in Pretoria in 1956, protesting the apartheid pass laws. The Women's Living Heritage Monument, which is in the heart of the city of Tshwane, is an eternal and living tribute of the contribution and role of women in the struggle for freedom and democracy and towards development. In the Western region, we have the Kagiso Monument, which is meant to remember the 12th of May 1991, where about 1,000 angry Kagiso hostel dwellers attacked the residents of Swaneville informal settlement as a revenge on the abduction of 2 of their own earlier that day, and subsequently attacked Kagiso residents. On that fateful night in May 1991, about 25 vehicles and 115 shacks were set alight and 27 people were killed, leaving scores of people injured in both Kagiso and Swaneville. In the Sedibeng region, we have the Boipatong Monument, which seeks to remember the brutal Boipatong massacre of 1992, when 45 innocent people were assassinated and approximately 40 others in which almost derailed talks of smooth and peaceful transformation from the apartheid regime to a democratic society in South Africa. The June 16 Memorial Acre in Johannesburg region commemorated the 1976 Soweto youth uprising in which hundreds of school children lost their lives while protesting against the apartheid state imposition of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in schools. What began as a peaceful protest ended in bloodshed when the apartheid police opened fire on unarmed students. The OR Tambo Cultural Precinct in Ekurhuleni region attributes to the legacy of Oliver Reginald Tambo, the stalwart of the struggle for emancipation of all the oppressed South Africans. The precinct is located in Wattville, where the Tambos once resided. It is a heritage site that celebrates the contribution of Mayor Adelaide and Dr. Reginald Tambo, contribution to the democratic dispensation that we are enjoying currently in South Africa. Madam Chair, in conclusion, we urge our communities to safeguard and protect our cultural heritage and institutions for future generations. Minister Mthethwa, we must work to ensure that our diverse cultures and heritage reflect all our identities without any distortions. Thank you very much, Chair of Chairs, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matseke, the Chair of Sports, Arts and Culture in Gauteng. We now call upon Honorable More from the DA to please respond to the Minister's address.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair of Chairs. I wonder what the view of the Minister is when public funds are used to develop and place statues with ANC logos, promoting the ANC at the expense of taxpayers' money. Madam Chair of Chairs, many of our heritage sites are under siege and are in a terrible state. This is the first acknowledgement that I expected the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Honorable Nkosinathi Mthethwa, to indicate. Gauteng heritage sites are either not properly maintained or are newly built and not functional. It is concerning that millions of rands have been spent on new infrastructure projects for heritage sites, which the department claims to have completed, yet still closed to the public, while many have infrastructure defects. Most of the Gauteng heritage sites are in a state of disrepair, yet there is money allocated annually for the maintenance and completion of heritage sites. While we agree that there is a need to transform our heritage, there is an urgent need to fix the state of our heritage site first before we focus on other issues. We cannot transform something that is not that is broken and is in a state of disrepair. Our heritage sites should be fixed to ensure that they meet the general heritage standard. Then we can debate or discuss the next phase, which is the transformation. We should know that our heritage sites are part of our history and cannot be erased. Our heritage sites reflect where we come from, where we are going, and where we are, and can be used to shape our future. History is there for all our future generations to learn from, and is there to help us to remember what we have gone through so that we do not repeat the mistakes or the injustices of the past. We as South Africans have a very ugly past, a past that we do not wish to see repeating itself. It is important that our children and future generations are able to acknowledge and see the injustices of the past and are able to distinguish between the rich heritage that South Africa has, its ugly past, and its potentially prosperous future. The former late president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, championed the reconciliation project of South Africa. Therefore, our every thought, plan, and action should be with the aim of striving for unity and reconciliation. South Africa belongs to all of us, regardless of our different backgrounds. We cannot make any attempts to erase our history, culture, and heritage. We call on the minister to focus on fixing our broken heritage site as his first priority, and as several facilities worthy of preservation remains a shadow of their former selves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mure, for your presentation. We now move to Honorable Albert. That Chitangano have indicated that you won't be able to be part of this meeting. So for those
No,
I will jump.
I did not.
Oh,
Did
okay.
not
Oh,
even-
sorry. No. I'm not fighting.
No,
we
I'm
received
not, my honorable chair of chairs.
Okay, we received
Chair
a
of chairs,
group-
we are here. We are attending. We are here.
Is it? Because I received a group apology. So, but I'm happy that you are present. I will therefore recognize.
I'm present,
Honorable
Chair.
Chitangano. I will therefore recognize Honorable Chitangano to please address the House.
Madam Chair of Chairs, it is clear again today that the EFF leads and all other follows. The removal of apartheid status will be a progressive move in recreating cultural symbolism that represent post-apartheid democratic values. We have said it before that this country must take a non-negotiable removal of apartheid and colonial status and symbols while ensuring public participation in that regard. This status perpetuates the comfort of racists and white supremacy in our country. They stand in complete conflict with the aspirations of our democratic dispensation. We have long argued that these monuments continue to inspire white racists to think they are superior and have the right to celebrate their murderous and racist past. We today reiterate our standing position that government and legislatures must take the lead in removing all apartheid monuments in our public spaces. This should be an affirmation of transformation of our public spaces. These statues must fall without delay, and we can no longer wait for public protest for this to happen. They must be replaced in accordance with post-colonial and post-apartheid constitutional values. They must fall together with their legacies of landlessness, racism, and poverty. These statues must not be relocated anywhere, but rather must be lacerated apart. We must rid this country of the constant reminder of our painful past. These things do not represent our heritage. The money to be spent on keeping, protecting, and cleaning them should be spent on the disadvantaged people who are African Black majority. Honorable Chair of Chairs, in this country, Black people compromise and were expected to forgive white people for apartheid and colonial crimes through reconciliation. We must therefore never continue to nurse the feelings when it comes to changing place names. Those who argue today that renaming our towns and cities will costly and unaffordable, let them know that no amount of money will ever be enough for as long as we still have colonial apartheid place names that are constant reminder of the unequal power relations in our society. Let us move forward to changing these offensive place names that represent history and values of colonial and apartheid. Let us give our children a heritage that is representative of our new democratic dispensation. We must never protect white privilege at the expense of African Black majority. We must refuse to be reminded of our painful past of land dispossession through these place names. Lastly, we cannot talk about transforming South African heritage landscape without addressing the non-negotiable and fundamental pillar number one of the EFF, that is to expropriate land without compensation for equitable redistribution. I salute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chitangano, for your address directed to or in response of the minister's address. We'll now call upon Honorable A.D.W. Albert from Freedom Front to please address the House.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We are situated in an unprecedented time in history. South Africa was bankrupt before the COVID-19 pandemic arrived, and now, in the aftermath of the still unfolding crisis, this country is faced with unprecedented economic and social challenges. Against this background, the ANC's focus on arts and culture and drive to transform the heritage landscape is evidence of its inability to prioritize in a time of national crisis. While the economy exhibits a giant and growing hole and unemployment is the highest in our country's history, the ANC wants to move statues. This is akin to moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. In fact, it seems as if the ANC is trying to hide its inability to grow the economy and feed the nation with this project. Real bread is to be replaced with mere symbolic bread in the form of cultural propaganda. Therefore, unlike the minister's pronouncement that people will rise up against monuments, the fact is that people will rise up because they are hungry, and due to the endemic corruption within the ANC government itself, especially during COVID-19. It is thus of utmost importance to first fix the economy. But now we do believe in the establishment of a responsible heritage policy. In that regard, we view the following as important values. Firstly, if transformation translates into the demonization of a people, there can be no social cohesion. Secondly, history must be preserved so that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past. Thirdly, we must respect the different histories of the various peoples of our wonderful country. Fourthly, we must respect the various cultures and languages of this country. If we can find the balance within these values, then we will have a view of a positive future by learning from the past, a future where we all respect each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Alberts, for your presentation in response to the minister's May we now move? Can someone mute, please? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll now move to Honorable Adams of the ACDP.
Thank you, Honorable Chair of Chairs. Let me start by greeting yourself, Honorable Chair of Chairs, as the acting speaker this morning for the session. I also want to greet our speaker who is present, our premier who is present. I want to also greet our Minister, Honorable Minister Natem Tetwa, and also the people, honorable members of the legislature, and all the people of Gauteng. Chair of Chairs, I want to take this opportunity this morning to make a clarion call for the Gauteng legislature and the people of Gauteng and the nation at large. There's always a beginning where things can change. Let us use this opportunity as the minister has come to address us on this very sensitive topic. Let us use this day. There are days and there are certain days. Today is a certain day. Let us show the people of Gauteng that it is our opportune time to get together to forget the past, not allow the past to be part of our future, but let us begin to do things to unite this nation. The ACDP clearly advocates and strives for national unity to bring all races together. The Bible says to us, Chair of Chairs, in Psalm 145 verses 4, one generation shall praise thy works to another generation and shall declare thy mighty acts. I want to call upon everybody that the project for transformation is not an event, but it's an ongoing process in this country of South Africa. That when it comes to our heritage site, our statues and our museums, we must fight for the soul of the nation, our identity, as the minister has said. Honorable Minister and Chair of Chairs, I want to ask today that we must be proud after we have been long gone what we have achieved, that what we establish in this time will be something worthwhile for the next generations. In closing, Honorable Chair of Chairs, I want to make an appeal to the Honorable Minister. A young man at the age of 20, his family is still lamenting the case today. The family of struggle icon and hero Umkhonto Sizwe, MK Gorilla Ashley Kriel. They have asked very passionately that his murder site must be declared a heritage site. He has been gone for many years. And during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, security police officer Jeffrey Benzine admitted shooting Kriel in the back while Kriel was handcuffed, and Benzine was granted amnesty in 1999. I want us to look at these things to unite the whole nation, not just Pacific. And let us go forward as a nation to say that together we can build the new South Africa that we all wish for. I thank you, Honorable Chair of Chairs.
Chair of Chairs, where are you?
Chair of Committees, are still with us?
I'm just trying to check if you're still here.
I'm with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can continue.
Okay. I will now call upon Honorable Dlamini from the IFP to please respond to the minister's presentation. Bab Dlamini. Bonkos Dlamini. Okay. I'll take it that
Am I audible?
Okay. You are now audible, Honorable Dlamini.
Unmute, Honorable Dlamini.
Unmute, Bab Dlamini. I'm told that you are muted.
I don't know what's happening here. Hello? Am I audible?
Unmute.
I did.
Okay, you are
can hear
Zwana
you.
Lageman. Ungakhuluma, Bab Dlamini.
You have muted yourself again.
Honorable Dlamini.
Chairperson, can I propose that maybe the technical staff help unmute Member Dlamini?
Okay. Can you request that the team assist as requested by Honorable Hassan? Can you assist to unmute him? Okay. We seem to be having a challenge in terms of connecting or communicating with Honorable Dlamini. I will then call the Honorable MEC Mbali Hlophe to also respond to the minister's input. And if we do manage to get hold of Honorable Dlamini, I will give him his few minutes. Honorable MEC, please come in. Honorable, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may just be allowed to work from my device, so I will take off the camera. Honorable Speaker in absentia, Honorable Chair of Chairs, Honorable Minister Mtetra, Honorable Premier, Makura, the executive and members of the legislature. Madam Chair, Marcus Garvey reminds us that a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. We gather today to discuss our heritage, the collective memory of our nation. Heritage is among the primary sources of identity and originality, conveying to communities a sense of belonging. Of all our provinces, I dare say, Gauteng is a province of a special type. It is the embodiment of our rainbow nation in its racial, class, cultural, and gender diversity. None of us, in spite and despite of our ancestral origins, have come to this land of fortune without culture or heritage, giving rise to the melting pot and the dynamism which makes up this great province. With its historical roots embedded in the discovery of gold, the migrant labor system,
Nahlope, you are not audible. Can you check your mic if it's on?
Sorry, Chair, I was removed from the meeting.
Oh, okay, please continue, ma'am.
Of all our provinces, I dare say, Gauteng is a province of a special type. It is the embodiment of our rainbow nation and its racial, class, cultural, and gender diversity. None of us, in spite and despite of our ancestral origins, have come to this land of fortune without culture or heritage, giving rise to the melting pot and dynamism which makes up this great province. With its historical roots embedded in the discovery of gold, the migrant labor system, and various notable uprisings, Gauteng boasts a rich history which must be celebrated and used to raise our national consciousness, whilst turning this diversity and rich history into an economic strength and asset. In his Heritage Day debate honoring OR, former Minister of Arts and Culture, Paulo Jordan, contended that cultural diversity must be affirmed as the common heritage of all South Africans. Of course, heritage can be very painful or troublesome, depending on the group you belong to, resulting in the contestation of history and heritage. Thinking about Kalushi Solomon Mahlangu, who was brutally killed by the apartheid regime, let alone the Craddock Four, the Sharpeville Massacre, Boipatong Massacre, or even June 16, 1976 killings, where many were ruthlessly murdered by apartheid security agents. These exemplify the consistent pain of families for their loved ones who died in the front line of resisting colonial apartheid rule. Our heritage, or the collective memory of our nation, must be used as a tool of uniting South Africa by allowing us to learn and never to forget our dark era of colonization and apartheid, whilst embracing heroes and heroines of struggle for freedom as part of our national agenda towards building a non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous society. The apartheid system was a brutal political system, which not only stole and invaded land of the majority, but subjugated the masses of our people and tore their families apart through the migrant labor system, leaving communities broken for generations after. And to further entrench its dominance, it used colonial and imperial symbolism through statues and monuments as tools of cultural domination to consistently remind the Black majority of their place and smallness as they stare up at the gigantic statues of apartheid architects, imposing cultural imperialism on the indigenous landscape. As we engage on this critical topic of transforming our heritage landscape, apartheid statues and monuments as tools of cultural imperialism have become a topical matter. We have seen youth and students from the length and breadth of the country come out to say Rhodes must fall in Western Cape, or Paul Kruger must fall in Tshwane. Loud cries by offsprings of the subjugated who, despite living in a democratic society, carry the social, political, and economic scars of yesteryear generation. The presence of these colonial statues and monuments in the public domain do not resonate with the founding principles of the democratic institution of our land. They invoke sentiments of racism and white supremacy in the public domain. We therefore need statues and monuments that will entrench social cohesion and minimize dangerous political divides. Importantly, statues and monuments that promote the founding principles of our constitution. Madam Chair, Ekurhuleni municipality recently launched a 9-meter statue of O.R. Tambo at the O.R. Tambo airport, a statue of a revolutionary freedom fighter, an exemplary South African whose role in our current democratic state should never be forgotten. It is statues of liberators that ought to adorn our heritage landscape, serving as beacons of hope for the nation still grappling with unity. Indeed, Minister, the world over is taking a particular stance of dismantling colonial statues, as we have seen happen also in Europe. In adding to what is a critical debate that you have started, the submission we make is that these should either be placed in the less prominent spaces, taken to museums, or be visibly and boldly branded as statues of disgrace, with a big plaque written of the transgressions the individuals have committed. So as society and generations walk after us, walk past them, they may view them with the disgrace with which these individuals are. So history should never repeat itself, and they do not be viewed as heroes. The history of our country is both dark and victorious, and our heritage landscape must narrate this. Both these statues, branded as statues of disgrace, and those statues of struggle heroes and heroines, should be able to be what is put within our heritage landscape. And we ought to construct more of the latter. Transforming our heritage landscape is a great leap towards defining ourselves as a society. Hence, we have made it our priority to transform our heritage landscape by finalizing the renaming of various streets and buildings through our newly appointed Geographical Naming Committee, a committee made up of a diverse grouping of individuals who bring various industry skills and expertise to our portfolio of work. Furthermore, we are embarking on the reviving of our heritage routes in all our corridors, as these should serve as both avenues for social and economic development. Heritage routes trace and preserve our heritage for future generations. Heritage routes are not only culturally and traditionally embedded in our history, but are also linked to the tourism sector. Our Vilakazi Street and the Hector Peterson Museum, for instance, attract a lot of international and local tourists, bringing in diverse grouping of individuals to enjoy not just the rich history of the locality, but to also interact with its people and each other through food and dance, fostering social cohesion. In this case, Soweto is considered as one of South Africa's top 20 heritage tourist sites. Transforming our heritage landscape is significant for boosting the local economies. A heritage site has become the essential sources of revenue for the local economies. The connection between heritage and economy forms the basis for addressing the important social issues, such as infrastructural capital, inadequate access to credit, and the dominance of urban players. Transforming our heritage landscape and reviving our heritage roots through the duplication of what we call in the province our Vilakazi Street model will ensure that all regions, and especially our Sidibeng and the Western region, benefit through tourism economy. So our Sharpeville route can similarly to that of our Vilakazi Street in Soweto boast the hospitality sector through local restaurants, B&Bs, whilst artists and crafters in the locality can be provided with an avenue to showcase their talent. 73,000 jobs were created from the heritage tourism in the country in 2014. Through our planned revival of the heritage routes in all corridors, Gauteng will contribute quite significantly to this number. Speaker, we have learned of the unfortunate plans to liquidate the House of Nobel Peace Prize holder and our first democratically elected President Nelson Mandela. The liquidation of this house, which is an asset of our history, would be a travesty to not just the province, but the nation. Our department, working together with the Premier's office, will be meeting with the liquidators to intervene immediately, as we view this as a critical matter. Speaker, there is a tendency in history to obliterate the women in the liberation struggle or to render them invisible in shaping our history. To mitigate against this invisibility, In Gauteng, we have built the Women's Monument, which honors and contributes to women of our struggle from the 19th century. This monument is part of the infrastructural development entrenched in the history of women's resistance in our struggle for a national democratic society. Our department will further refurbish the house of Mam Charlotte Maxeke, Mam Margaret Gazo, who was the coordinator of the 1956 march and played a critical part in shaping the history of our labor movement. We are also establishing the interpreting centers in Mabani, which will depict the life of Franz Bart and her role in the struggle for national democracy. This is an essential aspect of telling our story, and it speaks to the important agenda of decolonizing and dismantling patriarchy of identity and heritage by giving a voice to women and magnifying their presence. Chair, heritage is embedded in the accumulation of experiences by Indigenous people. In this regard, the cultural experience and heritage needs to be safeguarded and protected to protect the experiences of the majority. There is no natural or spontaneous extinction of a culture or heritage of a nation. Its erosion takes place as a result of lacking the ability to integrate and transfer knowledge from the old to the new. Intergenerational integration within our heritage work is therefore paramount. To conclude, Madam Speaker, transforming our heritage landscape to be reflective of our national liberation and struggle has a potential to nurture nation building, to raise our national consciousness, and to unite our nation. It is therefore our task as a progressive government to transform and revive our heritage landscape, ensuring localities heal from the dark past by turning these spaces into spaces for social and economic development. Ngiyabonga, ngiyaleboga, nakhensa.
Thank you very much, Honorable MEC.
Well done, well done,
for your
Honorable.
input, ma'am. I just wanted to check if Honorable Dlamini is still available to make a comment. And there's also a request from one member of the House. In terms of Rule 777, who wanted to make a comment, that is Member Hassan. But let me check if Honorable Dlamini is available.
I'm available, Chair of Chairs. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Give you a few minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, and sorry about that. I'm being sabotaged here. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Nyambose, Honorable Members of the Executive, Honorable Members. Honorable Speaker, the preamble of the National Heritage Resources Act of 1999, which is the legislation governing the promotion and protection of our national heritage, states that our heritage has the potential to affirm our diverse cultures and in doing so shape our national character. The IFP respects and gives recognition to the central significance of arts, culture, and heritage in the social, economic, and intellectual life of the country. The IFP is of the view that the fixation with dismantling statues will not serve as well in defining the character of our diverse nation. As the Honorable Prince Buthelezi, MP in Parliament, has put it to the Minister, and I quote, if we must have a record of our saints, I think we must have a record of our villains as well, because those who don't remember their past are doomed or condemned to repeating it. Most importantly, this must be an inclusive process and not biased towards the celebration of the ruling party struggles icon only. We must have a balanced and diverse reflection on our history. By doing so, we stand a better chance of shaping the democratic character of our nation, where all historic artifacts that stand as element of heritage are treated equally despite our political differences and not in spite of them. The Minister must take this consideration into account when implementing his proposed plan to relocate the statues and monuments which iconify colonialism and apartheid to nation-building parks that are yet to be built throughout the country. The latter should not be a strategy that wants to erase the remembrance of our country's past. Instead, it should affirm the diversity of our cultures and be an educational experience for future generations to learn holistically about our past. Honorable Speaker, the prominence of colonial and apartheid statue monuments as well as city names is an uncomfortable reminder of our segregated past. While some people might view the transformation of heritage landscape as an ideological project, the IFP views it as a historic project that might build a cohesive and balanced heritage that reflects our democratic South Africa. Should it be executed well and efficiently, this heritage transformation project can have a positive social and economic impact, which is what we are currently lacking as a nation. Our heritage has a more nuanced meaning. We should treat it as more than just a popular slogan or a celebration of a Pride Day or partaking at a #Jerusalem challenge. The project to transform our heritage can be that bridge we use to cross over the polemic gaps that are present in our heritage space. The heritage space is very contested over who deserves to be remembered more. In my view, such polemics do not make any progress nor material difference in the lives of many of our fellow citizens who still live haunted by the shadows of apartheid, poverty, and inequality today. With that said, some widely noted critics of this heritage post-apartheid department, the conversation has been that it suffers from a lack of funding and human resources capacity, and also undermined by poor integration across different administrative departments and government. I sincerely hope that the issues raised in this debate will not just be another talking exercise about plans that will not be implemented. These should be part of the steps towards a progressivization of the transformation of our heritage, in particular that of creating of the cultural national building parks to be seen throughout and resourced accordingly. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob Dlamini, for your response to the input made by the minister. I now go back to the minister and allow him to respond to the inputs made by different honorable members of the legislature who come from different political parties. Thank you very much, members, for your input. Let me then invite the minister to the floor to please respond to the comments. Honorable Minister Mthethwa.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thanks, honorable members, in what I would say was a well-measured intervention from members, and the dialogue and the conversation should continue. But just as a broad thrust, Chair, the cultural nation-building parks would be regional, and we urge the regions and provinces to actually assist in this, as we'll be doing the inventory of all what we have at the national level, and look particularly to those sites which have been declared national heritage site. I perhaps won't be able to go to each and every member, but try to see some of the synergies as we shape and as we transform the heritage landscape. We are passionate about ensuring that we really do justice to the foundational values and principles of the Constitution. Premier Makhura would remember that we've been conversing on this matter together with the then Mayor of Tshwane, Msimang, that we definitely need to move, because as we move and shape this, there are things we're taking into cognizance. One of those is the role of women in liberating our country. And we are clear on that, as the MEC Hlophe and the chair of the portfolio committee has alluded to, that we definitely need to do that and ensure that we transform. We don't, change those, some of them were racist men, with freedom fighters who are only men. It has to take into cognizance this very important role by women. The Honorable More, I always struggle with people who throw the name of Madiba in reconciliation out of context, because Madiba was a very articulate leader, and whenever he spoke about reconciliation, he was clear he's not talking about capitulation. And let me quote him in 1996 in Parliament on this matter. We can neither heal nor build if such healing are perceived as one-way processes, with the victims of the past injustices forgiving and beneficiaries merely content in gratitude. Together, we must set out to correct the defects of the past. I'm raising this, Chair, to underline the point that the reconciliation is a two-way process. All the parties have a responsibility. You must be as vocal to the erstwhile perpetrators as you are vocal to victims. Because if you don't balance the two, you definitely are not talking about reconciliation. And I'm glad that the honorable member see the need to transform. But there is no need to discuss transformation. Transformation is to happen. The way it happens, we have to take into cognizance our own history and the kind of future we want to build and want our children and their children to inherit. Now, the honorable member, you know, there is nothing non-negotiable in a constitutional democracy. I think this we must you know, continuously raise with our compatriots that everything in this country, this is a country of people who succeeded to attain that democracy through engagement, through talks, through discussion. On the issue of how you relocate statues, it will be based on the law. There is the law in the country. No one will wake up one day and just go. The province of Gauteng and all its municipalities would be in a position to say, this particular area, this piece of land, this is the land where we'll have these statues, as exactly what MEC Hlophe said, with the narrative of who these individuals are. You know, what did they do in their lives and so on and so forth, without confining them to the dustbin of history, but at the same time, without imposing them in the prominent public spaces. We should be, you know, be the spaces for those who ensured that the democracy in this country is attained. So there will be negotiations. This is how negotiations happen. If you want to relocate any statue in a particular locality, there has to be a meeting of that locality and people discuss about that. If you want to change the airport, the people in that particular area should come and have records of those meetings, because it's those records at the end of the day which are, you know, examined and come up with a determination. So still, when we say the people shall govern, the voice of the people, the will of the people in that particular locality is very important. So there wouldn't be any coming in, you know, march away and take out statues and so on. No, it's going to be an engagement, because we continue to deepen our understanding as a people as we move forward. The issue about the legislature, the legislature would know how we follow the law, as it were. What we are emphasizing, Honorable Member, especially Honorable Chitangano, is that we have to, there's no two way about it. We have to ensure that the people govern. And in order to ensure that their will matters, not the will of some of us or few of us, but in that particular area. The issue about what is prioritized what I agree with the Honorable Chitangano, who says that people who say that no, you can't deal with these matters, these are costly and so on. And in fact, people who argue that way are people who want to distract from a very clear agenda of transformation. We cannot continue to have the majority being the minority cultural representatives in our public spaces. So that we should make. And this is what the Honorable Alberts is saying, again, talking about unemployment as if, you know, job creation and transformation are mutually exclusive. They are not. They are not mutually exclusive. They have to happen, all of them at the same time. But yes, we are doing it in a responsible way because, as we said, we are not confining them to museums or dustbin of history. We are going to be having these parks, which our provinces and local government would be able to look into their appropriateness and so on. So we are demonstrating that we are not erasing history. We're not erasing history, but we are saying people, generations to come, should be able to go to a particular place to understand history. This is history and how things happen. I hear what the Honorable Adams is saying about working together. We ought to. We ought to. We do not want to be a nation of which will start a statues fight, a war on statues. We are not, because what you can do, as we say in any revolutionary act, expect reaction, you know, and so on. So we definitely have to ensure that we move forward and we work together on this matter. It is a sensitive matter which need all of us to be responsible, but be firm as we do it. There is no way that those who were proponents of apartheid should continue unabated, dominating, and colonialism, dominating the public spaces without people giving an opportunity to do something about that. No, Honorable Dlamini, thanks for your intervention. Actually, we are not dismantling history, and the saints and billions and so on would be there. As we said, we have an example, and we made that example, and that example is at Union Building. We didn't take Barry Herzog to the dustbin of history. He's still there at the seat of power. He's still there, but it doesn't occupy a prominent space. Madiba does, because that's how it should be, so that the people who come after us would know that there was a man called Herzog. What did he do? You'll go to that corner and see that man there in that corner. But for Madiba, you'll see him. I started, Honorable Member, by mentioning that we have a state-of-the-art center, the Steve Biko Center in Ginsberg, and I would invite Honorable Dlamini to take time one day to go there. As I speak, last week we were at the Nkantolo, where O.R. Tambo was born, monitoring the construction of the Garden of Remembrance there. And in the forthcoming weeks, I will be in Graaff-Reinet, where we're doing the same with Professor Sobukwe. So it is not, heroes of the struggle are going to be acknowledged, as Cabinet has done, starting some years ago with the Liberation and Resistance Heritage Route. But recently, in these past few months, we also made, because where they're talking statues or symbols in the public arena, those would not be enough. One of the resolution we've made as cabinet is to build the Resistance and Liberation Movement Museum. So the entire liberation movement and what happens in this country and in this region and the continent, that is going to happen because in the main, we somewhat sanitized our history of resistance, of liberation. We need to tell things as they are, but also tell about the present and how do we move into the future. Equally, the Khoi and San heritage route has been agreed upon with 19 nodal points across the country. And this is how we will continuously transform this heritage landscape. But thank you very much. And thanks, Chair. I'm humbled that the legislature agreed to have us today and have this conversation. But the most important thing, the take out from here is that we need to be moving towards implementation of this program so that we ensure that nobody has to get into the street and protest about the heritage landscape in our country. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Mthethwa Dingiswayo Nyambose Makata Ontsibantsiba Mfoloze Mnyama Ekhetha abaweli nabangawelanga bayayiqoka. I'm sure I surprised you. Thank you very much, Nyambose. That brings us to the end of our sitting, but we need to rejoin the sitting again after the minister have left us in order for us to be addressed by IEC. Thank you very, very much, Minister and the team, for the briefing that you gave us today. And I'm sure it is clear for the members of the committee as well as members of the legislature on the way forward on what to do in order for us to make sure that we honor those that came before us and those that made sure that our liberation is actually, that we receive our liberation, but also those who actually made sure that the history of this country is not distorted. And we hope that through you, we won't be able to distort the history of this country. It will be properly spoken about. It will be in big books, and our children and children's children will be able to know what happened before them. Thank you very much, Minister, for your participation, sir. Thank you very much, Honorable members.
Everybody, thanks.
I will now adjourn the meeting, but also request that the members please stay connected whilst we are waiting for the briefing from the IEC. Thank you very much. We'll try to have it earlier than 12:30 in order to release our honorable members honorable chairs. I'm so used to chair meetings of chairpersons. So honorable members, the meeting is adjourned, and please stay connected until IEC joins us to give us a briefing. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair of Chairs.
Thank you,
Chair.
Oma.
Yeah, Chairman.
Yebo.
How was it, Chairman?
I'm okay. Now are you say?
Joe, you must say, Chairman. Joe, you must say, Chairman.
Hayi, anazi ukuthi wayengembeza chairman, ningangeni indaba zethu.
Chairman Omsad, Chairman Omsad, Chairman Omsad.
I don't mind to be called a chairman.
Yes, abazi ukuthi wayengibiza chairman.
Ngiyabona, uthi
abangazazi. No, siyabonga.
Bonga thina baba.
Awuzwe. Esrigo.
Amagwabara batwela ba wa itse go rona mona re mild right a thuso.
Shall we realize that there's a different link for the session at 12:30? So what's going to happen? Are going to stay here? Then we find other people are joining the other link.
Bacela ukuthi basijoyine ngapha baba.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we requested them good passioning up. I know that there was a link that was sent to honorable members, but because I'm going loser, so I'm keeping you here. I need down. Buitumelo, why Urrisoft? Buitumelo, I'm losing members who are now at 38, really 70 something. Can we start Chenontate Skosan?
Yes, ma'am. I'm just checking with Mr. Masemula and Mr. Msutu, just to ensure that they join shortly. Thank you.
Yeah, if it will take 15 minutes, then I'll have to adjourn the house and then request the members to join us at 12:30. Because I don't want them to actually use data ending whilst waiting. Already, Honorable Sox Kanyile have actually complained about his data.
We've already said to them, ma'am, that they should join us on this one. I see they're on the call now.